Rocco Besdnjak. I'm the founder and executive director of Camp Hero. We host veterans and first responders for outdoor getaways for mental health support, and we also do mentoring for at-risk youth through the outdoors.
Then I might just sit here and fun. I don't really see it in there.
Well, back in July, my cousin bought some property, 100 acres, just north of Camp Hero, and he gave us all full access and allowed us to be able to hunt it, and, bring vets and first responders down there. I went ahead and set up a camera and some corn, and within 2 days I had that buck show up on camera, and I knew this was something that I've never seen on camera before, nothing I've ever seen that was that big, and I was going to target that deer. That was in July. After a few weeks and him continuing to show up, I reached out to Matt, and I told him, I was like, I'm hunting this buck, will you film the hunt for me? And of course he said, yeah, of course. As time went on, I kept watching him, kept patterning him. The most important part of the whole time patterning him was going to be, the last week before the season started. So during that whole last week, I was watching every single day. He showed up right at the same time, right at dark. And as the countdown was going, as we got closer and closer to deer season, of course, my nervousness and everything was going up, because this is the first buck I've killed in 7 years. The last few years running Camp Hero, I've been putting 100% of my time in making sure that our guests and our people who came out had the best experience possible. So I've been putting everyone else on deer and haven't taken any time out for myself. And this year I decided to do that. So the day before season started, he came right back in like clockwork, right at dark, about 10 minutes before the end of shooting light. I knew that, that next evening was the time. We didn't even worry about trying to hunt opening morning, because I knew he was going to be there in the evening. So that later that afternoon, Matt and I went out. We drove to the property, went ahead and got up in the tree stand. I had hung two XOP tree stands side by side on the lock-on with sticks. We got up there. It was a pretty dull and boring first 3 to 4 hours, with really nothing but doves and crows and stuff like that. About 20 minutes before the end of shooting light, we had an 8-pointer show up right in front of us. It didn't hear it or anything. All of a sudden I look up and I see a body. I told Matt, I was like, there's a deer. And he's like, where? I'm like, right in front of us. And it was right there. He said, is that him? And I knew the body was smaller than the one that I was after. So he came, that 8-pointer started coming in, and I was like, nope, that's an 8. So I watched him through my scope. He went an 8, but he knew something wasn't quite right. He kept looking up at us, and he pretty much pegged us in the tree. He knew exactly where we were, but he didn't know what we were. He just knew that there was something wasn't right with that spot. He was there for, I'd say, at least 3 or 4 minutes just staring at us. And of course, we're trying not to move, trying not to do anything. 10 or 12 minutes before the end of shooting light, out of the corner of my eye, I see a massive body come from the right. I look, and here he was. I was like, that's him. I knew it. As soon as I saw his body, I knew it was him. He came out, he cut in right underneath to where I couldn't really see him because of the leaf cover. Then he went straight out in front of me with his back facing me. He was about 15 yards there. We were about 25 feet up in the tree. So we were pretty much looking straight down at him with him facing away. After about 2 or 3 minutes with him just sitting there eating, daylight was fading out. I was like, we got to do something. So he's like, make some deer noises. So I started bleeding, and Buck, he just sit there and turn his head, look back, and go back to eating. We did that 3 or 4 times, and finally, daylight was fading. I was down to like 2 or 3 minutes of, shooting light. I was like, I got to take the shot. I went ahead and shot, and he dropped right there. It was probably the easiest tracking job I've ever had in my life, which is good because he ended up being huger. Everyone talks about ground shrinkage when you get down. This deer got bigger and bigger as we got closer to him. Body weight, he was probably 300 pounds on the hoof. We went ahead and field dressed him, and at that time it actually started raining, so that was another good reason I'm glad he dropped right there, because if we would have had to blood trail him, it would have been really difficult. But we got him field dressed. We weren't able to actually put him up in the back of the side-by-side. He was too heavy. Matt and I couldn't lift him up, and so we ended up coming up with an idea where we took the winch cable from the side-by-side, put it up over a branch back behind the side-by-side, and strapped it to him to bring him up on the bed. We actually were lifting up the front of the side-by-side, so I had to sit inside the mule to hold it down to be able to lift him up to at least get his front shoulders up so we could get the rest of him on there. And we got him back to camp. It was amazing. We had the first evening, we had 3 hunters kill nice velvet bucks. See everyone else be able to harvest animals, it was, I don't know if I was more excited about them or more excited about me. I'm still in shock. I still can't believe that I shot a deer that big. The next day I took him to the taxidermist. He went ahead and green scored him at 175 inches. I've never killed a deer probably over 130 inches, and that was more than 10 years ago. So just to see the sheer size of its body and its rack and realize how big it was made me know this is a once-in-a-lifetime deer. Kind of, to me, it felt like a reward for me putting everyone else first before myself, and it allowed me to really appreciate, nature and what I've been given out here, and as far as property and the opportunity to take people out. If you want to know more about Camp Hero, you can go to our website at campheroky.org. We're also on Instagram and Facebook under Camp Hero Kentucky. You can also reach me by email if you want at Rocco, that's ROCCO, at campheroky.org. On our website, if you want to donate, there's places there where you can donate directly. And that's at campheroky.org.